Chapter 18, Ashwatthama. Pandav military camp. After celebrating and feasting to their fill all day long, the warriors in the Pandav camp had fallen asleep, including all the guards. There was silence all around in the night, except for the feeble sounds of snoring. Ashwatthama, Kritavarma and Kripa stared from behind a banyan tree at the silhouettes of the tents. "Would you not stop me from doing what I am about to do?" Ashwatthama asked his maternal uncle in a whisper, who replied equally softly, "You are our generalissimo now, and if this is what you desire, we will follow you. But I would like to tell you this, that accomplishments are achieved through the juncture of both efforts and fate, and not by either one alone. Attacking the enemy when they are asleep is unrighteous." Ashwatthama glanced back at the camp and responded, "The Pandavs have shattered the very foundations of righteousness in this battle. Why must we adhere to it?" Ashwatthama walked ahead and saw the two intoxicated guards with spears, dozing at either side of the gateway. With 2 swift arrows to their necks, Ashwatthama slayed them in their sleep, without any notable sound. Then he looked at his uncle and the Yadav, adding, "You two stay at the gate. Anyone trying to escape, you either turn back or kill." "Okay." They both nodded and held their ground at the opening, as Ashwatthama went in through it. Following the symbols, he quietly went to the Panchal section and entered the quarters of Drishtadyumna. The Pandav generalissimo was sleeping on his bed, and further inside were servants and women, probably courtesans or wives of the crown prince. They all were sleeping, clearly intoxicated from liquors they have consumed while celebrating. Ashwatthama climbed onto the bed and then kicked Drishtadyumna awake. Before he could do anything or make any sound, Ashwatthama planted his heavy foot on the Panchal prince's throat and began choking him. Weakened by the liquor, Drishtadyumna was able to only struggle and scratch parts of Ashwatthama's leg that was crushing his windpipe. Grabbing Drishtadyumna's hair and shaking his head violently, the powerful son of Preceptodran said, chewing his words, "Remember how you held the hair of my father before killing him." The noise of struggling awakened the women and the servants, and they screamed, seeing the demonic look in the intruder's face, before fleeing the tent. As Drishtadyumna went limp with a purple face and eyes wide open, Ashwatthama threw a lamp at the tent wall and set the tent to fire, before exiting himself. Lights in the tents around brightened, and people inside awoke at the screams and shouts. Without expressing any sign of distress, Ashwatthama used burning arrows laden with Indian Greek fire to set all those tents on fire, with occasional explosions. Many burnt in that fire and died, while the remaining few came out confused and unable to understand which side to strike. They quickly put on their armors awkwardly, but were in no shape to fight. Ashwatthama set Indian Greek fire to the armories of the camp, one after the other, and the warriors' weapon choices were reduced greatly, as they spotted and came for the intruder. Draupadi's 5 sons, yelling and trying to shake off the effects of intoxication, ran at Ashwatthama through the array of tents and ropes. With an arrow through his unarmored abdomen, Ashwatthama dropped Prativindya, Yudhishthir's son, fitting reply to the below-the-belt strike on his friend. Bhim's son, Sutasam, came at him with a sword, and unsheathing his own sword, Ashwatthama cut his antagonist's arm and then disemboweled him with a slash from the side. Nakal's son, Satanik, finding no weapons near him, took up a chariot wheel and hit Ashwatthama in his chest. But the strike was too weak, and kicking his foe to the ground, Ashwatthama beheaded him. A spiked bludgeon from Arjun's son through Draupadi, Shrutakama, grazed Ashwatthama on the side of his forehead, and in answer, he slashed at Shrutakama's face, cleaving it in half with a spurt of blood. Sahadev's son shot arrows at him, who blocked them without effort, using his shield, and then swung his sword to kill the boy. An arrow from Shikundi grazed past Ashwatthama's head, leaving a deep gash, and Ashwatthama glanced back with gritted teeth, responding, "I'm not the grandsire, and I have no problem killing a half-man, half-woman." Using his sword, he struck at the armorless Shikundi and almost divided his upper male part from his lower female parts. Vomiting blood from his mouth, Shikundi died, and Ashwatthama continued blasting through tents with his fire arrows. Those who have not woken Ashwatthama cut them in their sleeps, and those who were waking, he felled them down before they could get ready. Confused and scared, the ones that tried to escape by leaving the camp fell right into the ambush of Kritavama and Kripa, who used their arrows and dropped all who were fleeing. As the people and objects burned around him, Ashwatthama, standing amongst them covered in blood and gore, laughed maniacally and used his sword and arrows against anyone getting close to him. That night, he had avenged his father and grandsire Bhishma together. The next morning, the Pandavs returned triumphantly to their camp in Kuru Field from Matsya, accompanied by Krishna, Satyaki and the women of their household, namely Kunti, Draupadi, Krishna's sister and Arjun's second wife, Subhadra and Uttara, Abhimanyu's teenage wife. The women first witnessed the remnant of slaughter in the battlefield and then came to the camp, which was then reduced to ruins, ashes and rubble, with fire still burning and smoking here and there. Drishtadyumna's charioteer, one of the few who had survived the massacre, with face half burnt, informed Yudhishthira of how Preceptadran's son, Ashwatthama, had intruded and killed everyone at the dead of the night. The dark-skinned Draupadi, with stone-cold expression and bloodshot eyes, walked through the smoke, ashes and bodies, her relief at her husband's victory having been turned upside down in a matter of minutes. She finally noticed the half-burnt bodies of her sons, some headless, some entrail-less. Subhadra, with her daughter-in-law, Uttara, wept as they stood at the edge of the smoking camp. They had had enough time to process their grief of losing Abhimanyu, but Draupadi has received one of the biggest blows just now. The Pandavs, themselves shattered at seeing the bodies of their sons, wiped the tears that flowed incessantly from their eyes and joined their common wife. "We fought for everything," Yudhishthira said softly, "and we lost everything." "They took away our wealth," Draupadi said, looking down at her sons' bodies scattered throughout the camp with those of the other warriors. "They took away our power. They took my honor. And now they took my family, my father, my brothers and my sons. That Ashwatthama robbed me of those 5 parts of my soul, those 5 gems of my heart." Trembling and yet holding back her tears, Draupadi sat down on the ground beside Shrutakama's faceless body and said commandingly, stroking him with her finger, "My husbands and the valorous sons of Pandu, I sit here, not eating or drinking until you exact vengeance of this demonic deed. When Preceptadran took half of the kingdom from my father, he also took amongst other things, a precious gem of a divine worth from us. That gem have been known to adorn his son, Ashwatthama's body and very dear to him. Bring me that gem after defeating him in battle." She looked at Bhim and said, "I know how you have avenged my dishonor and how you care for me. I have this one last request for you. Bring me that gem." Without another word, Bhim, ever ready to see to all the needs of his wife, pulled Nakul and giving him the reins of his chariot, he climbed onto it. The two of them, at Bhim's command, proceeded from there in search of Ashwatthama. "He shouldn't go alone," Krishna said. "Bhim cannot face an accomplished archer like Ashwatthama. He possessed diverse kinds of weapons and poisons. He had once tried to trade them with me in exchange for my discus, which of course I refused." "Then let's go after him," Arjun said and looked for his chariot, which was unfortunately awaiting repairs due to all the assaults it endured during the war. Krishna then mounted his own chariot, with the flag of an eagle, followed by Arjun and Yudhishthira joining him in the vehicle. They followed Bhim, and as they drew closer, Krishna said to the second Pandav, "Slow down, where do you think you are going?" "I am going to plow the entire field if I need to." Bhim growled, "I would chase that devil to the ends of the earth if I have to, but I will get his gem and his blood." "There is no need," Krishna said. "My spies had told me that during the battle, Ashwatthama had often been seen to converse with the hermits of the Vyas order, who have a temporary settlement here by the Ganges River. If Ashwatthama wishes to hide, that's where he should be going, I believe." They then followed Krishna's direction and came to the bank of Ganges, where a group of hermits sat meditatively with bare bodies and clad in unstitched bark cloth. Ashwatthama's warrior's physique was unmistakable amongst them, even though he had smeared his body with butter and sandalwood paste, pretending to be one of them. At the sounds of the chariot wheels, Ashwatthama opened his eyes and saw at a distance of 100 meters Bhim's chariot coming towards him, followed by Krishna's. All of them seemed to have recognized him and were raising their weapons with wrathful looks. Ashwatthama sprang to his feet and took up his bow and arrow from beside him, while slinging on his quiver. With a single arrow, he broke the axle on Bhim's chariot and sent him along with Nakul flying to the ground, while the vehicle overturned behind them noisily. In answer, Arjun shot his arrows at his preceptor's son, who immediately dropped to the ground and rolled aside, giving Arjun as thin a target as possible. The other hermits fearfully rose and ran away to a safe distance, avoiding the direct line of fire. Rolling behind a rock, Ashwatthama rose and started shooting with his arrows, which Arjun blocked with a shield. Ashwatthama's arrow loosened one of the wheels on Krishna's chariot and made the vehicle lurch, tilt to one side and then stop. Alighting from the chariot, Arjun continued fighting, blocking arrows and answering with the same. Ashwatthama shot fire arrows and Arjun had to duck to avoid them. They landed on the ground and caused explosions, leaving behind craters. One of them hit the overturned chariot of Bhim and loudly set it ablaze. The hot shockwave and burning debris from it sent Nakul and Bhim to the ground. More fire arrows came from Ashwatthama now, laden with herbs, which plunged into the earth and started giving of smokes that made Arjun's eyes water. Wiping his eyes and coughing, Arjun still aimed for the rock, using which as a shield, Ashwatthama attacked them. His arrows grazed the side of Ashwatthama's bare upper body and left a bleeding gash. In answer, Ashwatthama's arrow buried itself into Arjun's arm, making his stagger behind. Another fire arrow came and Arjun jumped out of the way to avoid the circle of explosion it caused. "Stop it," said one of the hermits, seemingly their leader, as he daringly stepped between the two archers. "Both of you, please. You defile out holy grounds with your weapons. The great war is over, isn't it? Please stop now." "You never came to stop him when he slaughtered our friends and family in their sleep." Arjun replied angrily, with an arrow still knocked on his bow, that too was after the war was over. Ashwatthama realized that he was down to his last 2 arrows, and so he lowered his bow and remained in his safer position behind the rock. The lead hermit looked from Ashwatthama to Arjun and then said, "So you wish to kill each other? Then what? Your children will kill each other too for vengeance, and then their children. Have you two sides not yet been satisfied, even after swallowing generations of warriors and kings?" He sighed and continued, "As I understand it, both sides have violated all rules of war and attempted to obtain victory and vengeance. I'd say you are even now." Then he fixed his stare at Arjun and continued, "Don't forget, Ashwatthama is of the priest caste by birth. Even after the official end of the war, killing a priest will be another sin." He turned back at Ashwatthama and added, "And if you do more than you have already done, then that would be a sin too." "He killed our sinless children," Bhim said, wiping his eyes and coming out of the thinning smoke. "We want justice." "Have you not killed the sinless children of your enemies?" the hermit said coldly, at which they all hung their heads. But Arjun replied, "We can't forgive what he has done. We can't let him go just like this." "Tell me what you want then," the hermit asked, "other than his life, of course." "The gem that he has," Bhim said without a second thought, "taken from King Drupad and given to him by his father." "No," Ashwatthama growled and stood up from behind the rock. "It's mine. It has been an heirloom to me for nearly 30 years. Krishna spoke at this and said, "Either you give us the gem and walk away, or we take you to Draupadi in shackles where she can take whatever you have. No law restricts us from taking a sinful prison, even after the war." "Give to them what they want," the hermit now said to Ashwatthama in a tone of rebuke, "if you value your life and freedom." With a grunt, Ashwatthama reached into the small pouch that hung from the priest's holy threads around his body. From inside it, he brought out a small, shiny, see-through rock of blue color. He threw it angrily at the Pandavs and stepped back towards the edge of the water, where there was a boat anchored. Bhim walked ahead and picked up the gem, holding it before his eyes. Ashwatthama climbed on the boat, raised anchor and floated away from the bank towards the other side. If you are even again seen within the Kuru lands or in any kingdom, you will be imprisoned. Krishna warned aloud. The boat was almost halfway through to the other side when Ashwatthama shouted out to the Pandavs in a gleeful manner, "You know, after the massacre, I could give the news of it to Duryodhan at his last breath. He was so glad to hear that I had reduced the Pandav army to just 7. Think how glad he would be from heaven now, when he will know that I have ended your lineage, Arjun. No sons or grandsons to the Pandavs anymore." Ashwatthama laughed his maniacal laughter from the middle of the river, and the Pandavs were confused, because the world knew that Abhimanyu's wife, Uttara, was pregnant, and she would birth the grandson of Arjun. Then it dawned on them, first on Krishna and then to the rest. "Uttara," Krishna uttered softly, and then leaving the bank, they went to their incapacitated chariots. Ashwatthama was too far away, and they had no time to waste trying to get to him. Unyoking the steeds from their vehicles, the Pandavs and Krishna rode on horseback, returning towards their destroyed camp.
To be continued. Stay tuned for the next chapter.